And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore Podcast, episode 2, where we never sit out. I'm your host, Matthew Dawson. I'm joined today again by co-host and brother, Chris Dawson. How we doing?
Fantastic. Cannot believe we're already here. Episode 2. Let's go.
Come on. And guess what? In this dry June, we have news.
Surprise, surprise. There's college football 12 months a year. We love it.
Surprise, surprise. That's why, sure. There's an off season, but again, we don't sit out. We're here. So what's on the agenda today? We're going to continue our second year coaches draft, toe to toe, me versus CD. See who drafts the better coaches, and we're going to get to talk about all of them. So don't you worry. And then also we're going to talk about NIL boycotts. More to that in our mailbag question, which if you have a mailbag question for us and you want us to answer those, you can email us at theredshirtsophomore@gmail.com. Again, that is theredshirtsophomore@gmail.com. Send in your questions if they're good and we like them and we want to talk about them. We're going to talk about them. We're going to shout out Luke, who's our mailbag question of the day. We're also going to get into blue chip. Did someone say blue chip? I don't know. Someone said blue chip. We'll see. We'll see who said blue chip. Red chip, blue chip, one fish, two fish. Is that how it goes? Whatever. Who cares? All right, let's get into it. Okay, so to recap yesterday or last time on the episode, we drafted 4 coaches, 2 each. CD led us off, took Lincoln Riley. My first pick, second overall pick was Dan Lanning. And CD took Brian Kelly. Then I took Mike Elko. Quite controversial. My picks were quite controversial, but I'm here picking coaches that I like and think are going to be successful. So if you want to watch those, you can catch us on the first episode. That's on Spotify and on YouTube, the Redshirt Sophomore. So fantastic. Anything else?
The Dan Lanning, was it really that controversial? I mean, it shouldn't have been, but it was because we saw a rating today that had him in the 40s for coaches in college football. That's criminal.
It's criminal.
That's criminal.
That's criminal. And we're not here to register clicks. We're here to talk college football, right? So those guys, they can get all their clicks. They can put Dan Lanning in the 40s, whatever. I think we know what's really going on over here on the Redshirt Sophomore. So you're going to be kicking us off on today's draft. If you want to recap us, why is this important? Why do we talk about second-year coaches? Like it's like some sort of big deal.
Well, we've seen time and time again. Used to be pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal. You had that third year was that big year because coaches can establish their culture, get their players in from the recruiting classes. Now with the transfer portal, it's a lot different. You can fix one side of the ball every offseason. That first offseason, you pick one, you fix it. Second offseason, you pick the other one and you fix that one. The best coaches are able to do that, and you see a big jump from year 1 to year 2. We saw that with Josh Heupel in Tennessee, what they did, right? Beating Bama, destroying LSU. Brett Bielema, 8-5 for Illinois was incredible. Lance Leipold, Kansas went bowling, right? Gus Malzahn did his thing with UCF, and now they're in the Big 12. So even more exciting things happening there. And Shane Beamer in year 2 beat Clemson and Tennessee. So you see the year 2, that's why we're doing this. And we got a lot of high-profile guys. Today is where it gets interesting because now that tier 1 guys kind of gone. Yesterday, minus Mike Elko, whatever. I know Mike Elko's a good coach, but he's not in the tier 1 with Lincoln Riley, Dan Lanning, and Brian Kelly.
Because of the profile of the program. I'm just going to put that out there, not of the quality of the coach.
Okay, that's fair. We talked about that last episode. But yeah, here's the choices get interesting. And today I've got with the first pick and the first pick in the 3rd round, but the 5th pick in the draft, I've got my Washington UW purple on for Kalen DeBoer.
Gosh, what a great, fantastic pick. And notice a lot of Pac-12 coaches here. Lots. Kalen DeBoer, not a very high-profile hire when he was hired, to be honest. Chris Peterson in 2019, he stepped down from the team right after going 8-5. Stepped away. He has his reasons, right? He did a fantastic job, took him to the college football playoff one year. Then Jimmy Lake came in, high-profile DC. Bama wanted him. Right? A couple other big prime programs wanted him as their DC. He said, I got a head coach opportunity and I'm going to blow it. I'm going to go 1-3 in the COVID year. And then I'm going to go 4-8. Well, he went 4-5, and then Bob Gregory took over for the last 3 games. So they went 4-8 that year. Their over win total was still 7.5, which is pretty high, relative to to those records right there. So a lot of people, I think, were feeding into that under narrative, and he blew that absolutely out of the water. They won 11-2, 7-2 in the Pac-12, which was unbelievable. Now, a lot of teams were really good in the Pac-12 last year, so they didn't really finish high in the standings or make the championship. But that's not to say that they didn't have a fantastic year. Kalen DeBoer, he came from Fresno State. He was a head coach over there for a couple of years. Coach Jay Kaner, fun fact, he was drafted to the Saints this year. Had some success there. He's the offensive coordinator at Indiana, which is the overlap with Michael Penix, if you didn't know. Who was their quarterback there, who had a phenomenal season last year. Phenomenal season. Probably one of the front runners to win the Heisman Trophy this year. And he returns fantastic receivers. But I'm going to let you get into that because I know you had reasons for picking Kalen DeBoer. So tell me why you took him.
Yeah, so why I chose Kalen DeBoer is that really the unexpected success in year one. I mean, they won 11 games, right? 10 in the regular season. Nobody expected them to do it. Even if you took their over, 9 was their max, and that was even crazy. What they did, right? We talked about one side of the ball offensively. Kalen DeBoer is an offensive guy. He went out and got his quarterback, Michael Penix, started him over Sam Heward, who was a former 5-star recruit that everybody out there wanted him to start.
Transferred out of there, by the way.
Yeah, he's over in Cal Poly now with his high school coach or high school offense coordinator. And so, yeah, they were 5th nationally in total yards, total offensive production.
Efficiency.
Okay. Efficiency, and the 84th defensively. And so I believe they're working hard to get that defensive rating a lot lower or higher, depending on how you look at it. They got their leading receivers back, Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan, right? Top duo in college football. They're right there with Ohio State, Abuka, and Marvin Harrison. The offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, he's been with the DeBoer for a while now, and he had a lot of traction in the offseason. I know A&M looked at him. I know Bama looked at him, among other schools.
Yep, TCU, I believe, looked at him, as well. So that was a huge keeper for Kalen DeBoer right there, and I greatly credit him for that as well, keeping him around. I think he's going to have another great season.
Well, and exactly. That shows where the program's heading. It shows that there's buy-in from top to bottom, not only with the coach, and that people want to be around him, right? That Grubb wanted to stay with him, but also that the higher ups, right? The athletic directors, your NIL, your boosters, they are dedicated to this program, and he got a nice pay raise. I know, this offseason, deservedly so.
Can I ask you something though? So, Are you at all concerned? So, if we go through the recruiting rankings, right, these past couple of years, okay, 2019 they were 15th in the country. 2020 they were 18th. 2021 they were 26th, so a tick down. In 2022, right when Kalen DeBoer was hired, they saw a huge tick down. They were 59. They didn't bring in a lot of guys. Are you at all concerned that maybe that class is going to leave a gaping hole, on their roster in a couple of years?
I mean, for sure can happen, but I think with the transfer portal nowadays, and a guy like Kalen DeBoer, I don't think he was hired because of his recruiting. Right? You look at a guy like Mario Cristobal, like that's how he has success because his players are more talented than yours for the most part. Kalen DeBoer is one of the people that can go and find talent, his own type of talent, and then develop them. And at Washington, they're not quite the same level on the West Coast as Oregon and USC, so they can't really go out and get the best players whenever they want. So I think that's going to be his route to success. And they had, 29th last year. This incoming class is not great, but it's promising, moving in the right direction. You also got to get your NIL bearings together, right? We saw Billy Napier struggle with that in Florida. It takes a while. Some interesting people they did bring in though, the transfer specifically, Dylan Johnson, a running back from Mississippi State. I know they're very high on Jabbar Muhammad, cornerback from Oklahoma State. And then Josh, they got 2 guys from lesser known schools. Josh Cuevas is a tight end from Cal Poly. And then Zach DeFree, who was actually an edge from Sioux Falls College. That's a great take there. Zach DeFree, I know Minnesota found him early in the process, and it was just those two as Power 5 schools that were looking at him. And Minnesota wanted him badly. He's just got a great body, very good athletic upside. One more year in Power, 1 year of Power 5 coaching and weight room, and he's going to be a real good player for them off the edge. And then some transfers they lost out on, which, to be honest, I kind of see as a plus for Kalen DeBoer because he wasn't tied to the quote unquote talent that was there before him. Sam Heward, we talked about earlier, the quarterback, went to Cal Poly, and then Saviel Smalls, which was a highly recruited edge on the West Coast. He went, transferred to Colorado this past offseason. And I just think it's interesting that he got caught up with the star ratings and the star rankings of those guys, and they kind of just said, we're gonna bring in the guys we want. We're gonna see who deserves to play. And I think they're a real interesting team to watch out in the West this season.
Absolutely. I think they could be really good. All right, so moving on. Okay, now I get a chance to pick. I was going to take Kalen DeBoer, very candidly. I was going to take him. But now I'm going to go in a direction. This is probably my only time I'm going to go chalk here. All right, to be honest. And we're not going to have much to say about him because the resume speaks for itself this past year. For this pick, I'm going to go with Sonny Dykes. Right. I mean, people are probably surprised he was still on the board at this point. Obviously, so Gary Patterson had a fantastic career at TCU. But by the end of it,
he really did. What he did for that program when he got there, they were in the Mountain West. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They were not in the Big 12. They were not a powerful program at all. They were not a national contender until he got there. And he did fantastic until the end. They went 5-7, 6-4, 5-7 again, with recruiting rankings of like 31, 23, and 44. So not exactly what the program was looking for. And of course, they parted their mutual ways. And they bring in Sonny Dykes, who was the head coach at SMU beforehand for a few years. He brought some transfers with him, but they also already had some sneaky talent there, and they blew everyone's expectations out of the water. They made it to the national championship. Now we can talk about the score of that game, but let's start with they beat good teams this year. They had a lot of success against a pretty stacked Big 12 this year, if you're going to ask me, in terms of like
top to
bottom, the depth of it, right? I'm not going to talk about like the top talent in the Big 12 being like necessarily competing with some of those other conferences, but definitely a deep Big 12. They went 9-0 in the Big 12. They came in first in the regular season, lost that championship game to Kansas State. Fantastic game. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, I am so sorry. It was a fantastic game. Their over-under win total last year was 6.5. This year it's 7.5, right? People, they're just in the national championship. Well, they lost a lot of guys in the NFL, like a lot of guys. Offensively, in terms of efficiency, they were 14th. Defensively, they were 25th. Their biggest loss, actually, realistically, was probably Garrett Riley. And the reason why I didn't really take him as high, and they went and hired Kendall Briles, who was a little controversial. When I say a little, I mean a lot. Had some instances. His dad was involved in some stuff at Baylor and he was assistant coach there for his dad. Look, he's a good coach in terms of he knows how to call plays. He did okay at Arkansas. I don't think TCU fans were super happy with that. I think they would have preferred a guy like Ryan Grubb, who we talked about previously. But I feel like I'm talking so negative about TCU right now. They had a fantastic season. They overshot everyone's expectations, and they still have some talent on that team, and they did pretty well in the transfer portal.
Well, the interesting thing there with that offense coordinator hire is the reason why they were disappointed is because, I mean, if you told them last year, oh, we got Kendall Briles, he's a SEC guy, he's very successful, he's a smart head coach, baggage and all, right? It's if you're TCU typical fan, they'd be like, okay, you know what, I can live with that. But after the season they had, the success, especially offensively they had, you'd think they could have hit this higher out of the park. And I think that's where the frustration set in with the fan base.
Yeah. And I think their defense coordinator did a fantastic job last year. Joe Gillespie, who, fun fact, was an assistant coach for Art Briles back in the day on that 2014 Baylor team with like Sean Oakman, Jared Stidham when he was on that team. That's your water cooler fact of the day. Who did Jared Stidham play for before he went to Auburn? Played for Baylor. Fun fact. So yeah, and it's indirectly responsible for Bama not making a national championship. What was that, like 2019?
Yeah, that was or no, 2018. I think it was the year with Jalen Hurts.
Yep. Yep. So,
Maybe
anyways,
2017. That was a while ago.
I mean, they ranked 19th in the transfer portal class this past offseason, so they did well there. They got some nice guys. They got a lot of guys from Bama, right? They got a JoJo Earl, absolute speedster. Um, people were really high on him. Didn't necessarily produce, or he was, but uh, you know, he's pretty good. I'm assuming who else? I'm trying to think about the other Bama guys that they got.
It was
The offensive
Trey
lineman.
Sanders. Yeah, Trey Sanders, the running back, was a former 5-star from
Yep,
IMG.
absolutely
Who just
fantastic.
battled injuries. A great person. I mean, he had that car accident. Like people thought he wouldn't play football again. He's a very talented guy. Is one more year removed from that injury. He might be pretty good this year. Hopefully, contribute for them. And then Tommy Brockmeyer from Texas was a highly rated recruit. I think was top 6 nationally as a tackle for them.
Yep, they also got Chance Nolan in the transfer portal. If you follow Pac-12 football, his quarterback at Oregon State last year. Now Chandler Morris is still there. Probably going to start. He started over Max Duggan going into the season last year, so they're probably still pretty high on him. If I had to guess, I know that's Sonny Dykes' guy. But Chance Nolan would not be going there if he didn't know he had a chance to compete for a quarterback spot. So that'll be something interesting to watch in this offseason. But yeah, so that's our spiel on TCU. Pretty good team. And I took Sonny Dykes. Sorry I didn't take him higher. I mean, I don't know what to say. So, anyways, well,
to add something to that real quick, the reason why I didn't take him either, I might not even taken him next. I think I like this guy next more than him, but I just think TCU is one of those programs right now that just builds up to their peak, right? And they peaked this past season. Interesting enough, in year one, which is highly impressive. But you look at teams like Cincinnati, Utah, kind of back in the day. Utah's different now. They can be good, every year. But teams that just build up, they stack recruiting classes together, and then they peak in every 3-4 years. And I just think they're going to take a big drop down in year 2, which you're not saying about everyone else, the other people that have been taken higher than him on this list.
I agree. I 100% agree. It's more about like future outlook, right? I mean, that's kind of why I liked Mike Elko. That's why I like Dan Lanning over those guys, even though, Sonny Dykes made the national championship. Got to think about the future when you're thinking about these head coaches, because it's honestly, in no other sport does the coach is the coach more important,
Well, especially nowadays with transfer portal recruiting. I mean, the hardest job in sports right now is head coach of college football, especially of Power 5 program.
Yep.
With high expectations.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Next pick, a third pick of the day. Who is CD going to select?
I'm gonna take a guy from Power 5, but not necessarily a conference itself. It's Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame.
Fantastic pick. Fantastic pick.
He struggled out of the gate early. Marshall. Talk about that. We are
Stanford. Stanford comes in with their, 36s on their ACTs, and they hung some burgers on them. That was tough. That was a tough game to watch as a Notre Dame fan. I mean, look, so Brian Kelly, right? He's the coach at LSU. He was picked on day one. Okay. He went 11-2, 10-2, 11-2 in his previous 3 years there. So they had good talent on the team. They were winning lots of games. The expectation was, Marcus Freeman, he got promoted from DC. It was, a promotion from the inside. People were like, he's going to keep the momentum going. People love him. He's a player's coach. He recruits at a very, very high level. He did it at Notre Dame as DC. He did it at Cincinnati. He's a very good coach. But this year, it's their first time losing 4 games in a regular season since 2016. So I understand if Notre Dame fans were upset about this year, but recruiting rankings, I mean, so Brian Kelly went 2019 16th, 2020 15th, 2021 they were 10th. 2022, when Brian Kelly leaves, he leaves to get a better job, and Marcus Freeman comes in, and they have a better recruiting class. They're number 9th in the country.
They finished strong too.
They finished stronger than, honestly, if Brian Kelly had stayed. And then in 2023, they were 13th. In the country, but really they got some really, really good talent that I'm not sure they would have otherwise brought in without
Well,
Marcus Freeman, and they have already started out pretty hot in 2024.
yeah, who they had committed to them was Keon Keeley, right? That he ended as a top 3 player nationally and
Yep.
when flipping to Bama, but they were on him early and they got him to commit. And unfortunately, they couldn't close. But maybe in a couple years, it's a different story there with the way he's recruiting at Notre Dame.
Yep, absolutely. So they went 9-4 this year. They won their bowl game against South Carolina. Their over/under win total for this year is 9.5. So people, yeah, their people were high on this team and they just didn't perform to expectations. Their over/under win total for this year is 9. In terms of offense, man, they lose Tommy Rees, their offensive coordinator. He goes to Alabama. They had a terrible offense last year. I'm gonna tell you their offensive efficiency. It was 39th in the country. That does not include their pass game. Well, it does include their pass game, but they were 98th in total yards per game, passing wise. It was bad. They had injuries at quarterback. They did not have their guy at all. Drew Pines over at Arizona State right now, I think. I mean, that dude, he stinks. I'm sorry. Okay, that's harsh. He's not very good in terms of what they were trying to do there at Notre Dame with Tommy Rees. So Tommy Rees is gone. I mean, their defense is obviously going to still be good. They got some good talents. They brought in Sam Hartman, which is the big story of the offseason in terms of transfer portal for Notre Dame. And they had a guy, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, 6'5", 250, nice solid edge rusher, but fortunately he medically retired. So that was a hit to that transfer portal class. But overall, I think they got better. But tell me why specifically are you taking him as well?
I believe in his philosophy. I mean, we talked about, Kalen DeBoer's philosophy in terms of recruiting, a different type of way that maybe Jimmy Lake did or maybe Chris Peterson did. Marcus Freeman's recruiting differently at Notre Dame that Brian Kelly did. And Brian Kelly always complained about, well, didn't really complain, but the knock on him and the defenders were saying we didn't have the talent. They didn't have the talent to beat Bama. Didn't have the talent to beat Ohio State or Clemson or whenever they had to play in those big games. But the thing is as head coach of a college football, you have the ability to control your roster for the. I mean, not necessarily, but to recruit hard, to recruit good, and I think Marcus Freeman knows that. He understands the importance of having a talented roster and being able to make that next jump that Notre Dame fans want them to make. And we see that this year they hit the recruiting trails hard. They're third right now, including they got Cam Williams committed, 5-star wide receiver from Glenbard South over in Illinois here, 6'2", 190, really, really good. They got their quarterback, top 5 quarterback in the country, CJ Carr.
Very good.
Yeah, he's Elite 11 show out. He'll be might even be higher ranked by the end of the year. But yeah, their over on win total right now was at 9.5 last year. Obviously they hit the under there, but it's down to 9 this year. And I think they have a real chance of, being right around 9 wins, which is improving on the 8 wins last year. Let's see. I don't know. I like their transfer portal class, like Sam Hartman. Antonio Carter was a big time get, a cornerback from Rhode Island. He was very highly sought after, and he's going to be real good for them just to fill a hole there in the cornerback spot. And I do think year 2, Marcus Freeman culture, getting another year away from Brian Kelly, I think they're going to be a lot better this year. And that's really all. I believe in him, and I believe in the staff there. Minus
I'm not
Tommy Rees, but
Yep. I'm not knocking the pick, dude. I'm not knocking the pick. I'm only not knocking the pick though, because I get my guy. This is my guy. This is my guy. All right. My last pick of the day. It's going to Joey Smelly Shoes McGuire. This dude is a dog. This dude is unbelievable. What he did with Texas Tech last year in his first year, people were like, oh, let's plug and play Joey McGuire. He was on that Dave Aranda staff. He was pretty good. Awesome. What beats Texas and Oklahoma for the first time in, I don't know, maybe ever. I mean, unbelievable. They won 7-5 in the regular season, which anyone with eyes is like, well, 7-5 is not that good of a record. We're talking relative, all right? Before Joey McGuire got there, their recruiting rankings, 65th in the country, 47th, 46th. I mean, the previous records with Matt Wells there were 4-8, 4-6 in the COVID year, 7-6. I mean, not anything not anything to go home about. I mean, and he did it with 3 quarterbacks. He did with 3 quarterbacks. Injuries all over the place, right? Show started the first game, goes down with the collarbone injury. Donovan Smith comes in, starts the next like 4 games. He does really well. Does pretty well. He goes. Baron Morton comes in. He started like 3 or 4 games, and they were just winning games. And by the end, the show comes back, and we saw in the bowl game what Texas Tech was looking at peak operation. They absolutely beat the snot out of Ole Miss. They did. He did fantastic. He did fantastic this season, and he's not done. He is not done. Offensive efficiency, they were 47th in the country. Again, with 3 quarterbacks. They were top 50 offense in the country with 3 quarterbacks. Defensively, they're 26th in the country. I love that. And you know what? I like that kind of like nose to the grindstone defense, especially like in the Big 12 in these recent years, right? From like 2014, 2018, that was the laughing joke. Big 12 can't tackle. It's changing a little bit right now, and I'm glad that, Joey McGuire's there. And what does he do on the defensive side of the ball? Oh, what does he do? Oh, I don't know. He plucks Tim DeRuyter from Oregon, one of the better defensive minds in college football, wants to coach at Texas Tech. When have we ever seen that happen, ever? In Joey McGuire's second year, he's sniping guys like Tim DeRuyter. I mean, everywhere he's been at Texas A&M, they went from like, I don't know, 90th in the country to like a top 25 defense when he was there. Fresno State, he was their head coach. Defensively, they got better every single year he was there. He was the DC at Cal a couple years. They weren't great teams, but they got better defensively every single year that he was there. Again, he's at Oregon last year. They didn't have the talent for what they wanted to do, and the Pac-12 had a lot of quarterbacks last year that were very good. But he's going to do awesome. And Zach Hitley, I want to talk about him as well because he was at Western Kentucky with Bailey Zappi, an forgotten college football hero. 62 touchdown passes when 2 years earlier Joe Burrow threw 59. People were like, "Oh, that's untouchable." And Bailey Zapp throws Zapatron, zapped 62 tutters and 5,900 yards. Like it's no big deal. So he did that. That's what Zach Haley was a part of. So he's brought in a great staff. Their transfer portal ranking class was 56th. They brought in some guys, but the recruiting cycle, 2022, when he first came there, already improved. It was 46th in the country. And then this past year, 35th in the country. That's a big improvement from the years before. And they're right now recruiting at a top 20 level early, right? We're going to emphasize early. That's going to change, but he's already on his game. He's getting talent, he's getting coaches, and he's winning games. I love Joey McGuire.
Well, I'll say this too. If you want to talk about hitting the ground running, not only year one on the field, but if you remember last summer, right? Summer of 2022 for the recruiting class of 2023, they were the number one team in the country. They had the number one recruiting class. And I know that was summer, and so they had a ton of commits, way more than anybody else. But you know what that tells me? Is all those guys that committed were all takes. They were plan A's early on. And Joey McGuire was able to sell them on coming to them and getting them committed early. Right? As a Minnesota fan, I understand that is such a big factor. That's so important because not only do a lot of those guys shut down their recruitment, meaning they don't go to camps, so they rivals camps or college camps, satellite camps where they can.
They're not taking official visits.
Yes, so that's why the recruiting ranking. Yes, it's at 35, but it's actually if you talk to them on staff, I'm sure they will say this. They feel a lot better than 35th. Because they got all those plan A guys. And what that tells me is that right away he was able to sell people on his vision for Texas Tech. And that's only going to improve with Tim DeRuyter, right? With their production on the field and the culture that he's bringing in there. And it doesn't hurt that you're in Texas, that you are, yes, You're fighting everybody in Texas and everybody else wants a hand in Texas. But there are 200 really, really good prospects to come out of Texas every single year, every single cycle. So, yeah, I don't knock the pick at all. This would have been my pick too. I mean, there's some other notable guys that are on the board still, but this is a heck of a pick, and he's a heck of a coach.
And he was a high school coach not that long ago in Texas, so he's got those roots. So that's going to wrap it up for today. To recap real quick, that's going to be CD, first pick of the day, taking Kalen DeBoer. I went with my guy, Sonny Dykes, chalk pick, and then CD went with Marcus Freeman, and then I came right back around and shot Joey McGuire. So let us know who you think won. I think I'm doing pretty awesome right now. Not necessarily going Chuck, but I think I'm doing great. So let's talk about our next thing. Mailbag question of the day. Again, if you want to submit a mailbag question, theredshirtsophomore@gmail.com. That's theredshirtsophomore@gmail.com. Please send us questions. We love answering these guys. Luke asks, what is going to happen with all these players boycotting NCAA football 24? Are we going to see more situations like this in the future? Thanks, Luke. If you didn't know, there's some articles that came out today talking about college football's, the College Football Players Association. They're organizing a boycott for the 2024 EA Sports game that's coming out. And so context on that, players are going to be paid $500 with no royalties to the game. Game sold 1 million copies when it last released in 2013. For reference, though, Madden sells like probably about 15 times more than that every single year. So it is on a larger scale. But these players think that they're getting gypped. What are your thoughts, CD?
I don't know. I mean, if you hear a lot of so it's only to preference, it's only a certain percentage of the players. And when I say a certain percentage, I mean a very small percentage. You're looking at your star quarterbacks. You're looking at your other high level players, who, by the way, who already have very good NIL deals. Are going to be NFL draft picks in a year or two. But obviously, it's football; nothing's guaranteed. And I get wanting to make a profit off your name, especially when you deserve it, for as much as you can, for as long as you can, right? But to be honest, $500 is a lot. Each player is getting $500, and
Yep.
I don't know what else they want other than they want a small percentage of it. And if you there's that new Jordan documentary. Well, it's really about Jordan's mother, and it's talking about she wanted to make sure he got a percentage of sales of Jordan products from Nike, and that's what made him all of his money. Not only through Nike, so that's why he's a billionaire now. So I'm sure they see that, and that's what they want. But I mean, what more can you ask for? $500 is plenty. If you, I don't know. I just want an NCAA game, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, so I can understand negotiating for a larger number because I guess when they look at it, they're like, oh, the fruit of our labor does not, or our name, image, likeness, you're going to be making a lot of money, right? We deserve, a percentage of that, whatever. Okay. They are getting a pretty decent percentage of that. They're getting like $5 million collectively as all the players combined. But what makes me mad though is that they're attacking EA like they're taking advantage of them, right? Look at the universities. The universities are making millions of dollars, billions. These conferences are making billions of dollars off these kids, and these universities are backing these players. Like, oh yeah, you should organize. Yeah, EA's treating you. Go get your money. What? What? What are you talking about? These universities, ESPN makes millions of dollars off these like media rights deals. I mean, these media rights deals are absurd. The Big Ten just signed $1 billion media rights deal because of these players, and these players, all these media outlets and these universities are pointing these kids in the direction saying, "Oh, that's the bad guy. That's the guy not taking advantage of you." When really, sorry guys, I mean look in the mirror. Look in the mirror, universities. I mean, these conferences at some point
and
we
the
talk.
NCAA the NCAA,
Yes,
they are the
yes,
real criminals in this. That is a
yes,
flawed organization,
yes.
and we'll
And
get
guess
into
who's
that another.
and guess who's making more money than the players off all of this? By the way, from these video game companies, the universities and the media rights people, like they're getting larger sums of money than these players even are, right? Because obviously these university names are being used. But I just think it's all crazy. Yeah, sure, NFL players make $17,000 off Madden, but there's more Madden copies sold. There's just less NFL players, right? I mean, $500 is a pretty decent thing. And I saw someone break down the numbers that EA would need to sell 90,000 copies to cover the player costs at $500. They're going to shoot over that. They're going to shoot well over that, but that's a lot of copies to just cover player costs, right? So, not to mention the development of the game. So, which we all want to be a very high quality game. So, but it's just like, oh, they're exploiting players. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Okay, like, let's relax. Get off your high horse, ESPN. Get off your high horse, CBS. Get off your high. Not to shout these guys out. I love these things, but just look in the mirror. All right, that's all I'm gonna say. So, all right, thank you, Luke, for your question. Please submit those questions. We love answering those. Blue chip ratings. Bud Elliott does fantastic coverage about this. The stat is you essentially need to have over 50% blue chip rating in order to qualify for potentially winning a national championship, according to the metrics. Blue chip ratio is 4 and 5 stars. We need talent. So, how important is it to get talent, Christopher?
I think now more than ever it is. Just in terms of because now the media and all this other stuff, and fans. The expectations are way too high, and they believe that every team should be championship contenders. And why isn't my team contending for a championship? And this coach needs to be fired because, they can't make the college football playoff. When that really that's not true. But in order to make that spot, make that place, you do need to have a really talented roster. And that says a lot of things about your recruiting, your effort, the direction of your program, what high school kids are thinking about your program. Even though the transfer portal's still in, high school recruiting still matters more than anything. That's the bulk of your roster. That's the culture. That's how you set your culture. I think with the transfer portal, though, you can negate some of these. Like you see, Florida State's not on the list that Bud Elliott. There's less than 50%, and I think Florida State's got a really good chance to make some noise. TCU last year was not on this list. Now they didn't win the championship, and they obviously were not. Yeah, they were close, but they weren't really close on the field to winning one. So yeah, I think it's interesting. But Elliott does a great job with it. I really like his work.
Yeah, no, it is fantastic. Now, I want to point out one of these guys. All right, I want to point out Clemson. Now, last year, okay, they had a 63% blue chip percentage, which was uh not very high, but they've bumped up to 72% in 2023. And apparently they're pretty hot on the recruiting show right now. If you wanted to get into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll say this. Sammy Brown, obviously, if you're paying attention to college football recruiting, you know who he is. He's a freak athlete, football, wrestling, track. He's from the state of Georgia, 5-star linebacker, top 5 player nationally. Everybody wanted him, including in-state Georgia. And for a while, they were kind of trending. I know Dylan Raiola was working hard on him. All those other recruits in the Georgia class were working hard. But in the end, Sammy Brown had kind of been silently committed to them for a while, and they ended up on this official visit, which was a huge weekend for them, including guys like Cam Coleman, KJ Bolden, Mike Matthews, Edric Houston, all 5 stars, all were there, all had an incredible time. They're trending for some other guys, Corian Gibson, Ricardo Jones, Casey Poe, William Scatterwhite, Darren Mayo, all high 4 stars that seem to be trending towards them as well. And then they did get a couple commits out of that. Bryant Wesco was the first wide receiver to commit, or the second wide receiver to commit, 5-star. And then TJ Moore, also a 4-star receiver, had been trending to in-state Florida for a while, but ended up choosing Clemson after the great official visit weekend. It's good to see them getting back to recruiting power because, I mean, this past season they finished 11th and 10th year before that, which is still good. But for Clemson standards, when they were used to signing, the 5th and 3rd, 5th in 2021 and 3rd in 2020, and that's how they really they kind of lost that, and so that's why their blue chip ranking was down. But it's starting to get back up, and it's like nice to see post Brent Venables able to recruit at a high level again. Win some big in like high level battles.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and that's a team that does not take in a lot of transfers. Dabo Swinney believes in loyalty. He's going to take his guys that want to be bought in, and he's going to groom them up through the system. So it is really important that they recruit at a high level, specifically more than a lot of these other big programs. So absolutely. Well, thanks for that, Christopher. That's all we got time for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You can follow us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft. That's just the Redshirt Soft. You can catch us on YouTube and Spotify. Thank you so much. Make sure to send in your mailbag questions to us at our email. All right. Thanks again.